Look, I've been watching this Cowboys secondary get clowned on all offseason. Everybody writing them off, saying they didn't do enough, saying they're one injury away from disaster. But I just got back from checking everything coming out of Frisco right now, and I genuinely wasn't prepared for what I saw. Christian Parker might have quietly built something that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming at cornerback. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So, all offseason, the narrative around this secondary was the same thing on repeat. Dallas needed another corner. They were too thin. They didn't spend big enough in free agency. And honestly, those concerns weren't completely out of nowhere. DaRon Bland has been dealing with injuries back-to-back seasons. Trevon Diggs is gone. There were real, legitimate questions about who was going to step up when it actually mattered. But instead of going out and overpaying for some veteran name just to shut people up, the Cowboys bet on youth, on development, and on competition. And 1 week into OTAs at the Star in Frisco, that bet is paying off in a way I don't think anyone fully anticipated. What's happening in that cornerback room right now isn't just one feel-good story. It's 4 young corners all fighting for the same snaps, all pushing each other, all refusing to let anyone get comfortable. And that competition, right now, today, is already making this entire group better. So, let's get into it. Shavon Revel Jr. was supposed to be the guy the moment Dallas drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2025 draft out of East Carolina. I mean, think about the scouting report on this kid. First-round talent who slid because of a torn ankle before the combine. Couldn't test, couldn't work out, just fell right into Dallas's lap in the 3rd round. Long, physical, explosive, a press man corner who could make a receiver's life miserable from the snap. Most evaluators had him as a top 20 player before the injury. Dallas believed they were getting a future starter at a massive discount. Then year 1 hit, and it was rough. And look, that's not a knock on Revel. That's just the reality of trying to survive in the NFL while your body is still figuring itself out after a serious ankle injury. He played the entire rookie season in a brace. The hesitation was visible on film. His movement was restricted. And for a player literally built to be an aggressive press corner, playing cautiously is playing at half capacity. So, the 2025 season left real questions about whether Dallas had drafted a star or a medical risk. But here's what's coming out of Frisco right now. Revel came into this offseason with everything to prove, and he is doing exactly that. He looked more fluid in his movement than at any point last season. And honestly, the detail that tells you the most is that the knee brace is gone. He's out there trusting his cuts, planting, and driving without hesitation. For a corner whose whole game is built on aggressive man coverage, that half second of self-protection that used to show up in his movement, it's not there anymore. That's the milestone. That's the signal that the recovery is real. If it holds when the pads come on in training camp, the Cowboys have the player they thought they were drafting, and this secondary looks completely different. Now, even if Revel is fully back, he is not walking into a starting job unopposed, because Cobie Durant didn't come to Dallas to be a depth piece. Let me be real clear about what Durant actually did last season. 3 interceptions in the regular season, 3 more during the Rams' playoff run. 6 picks across the full season, including postseason. That is a proven, legitimate playmaker. And Dallas, ranked near the bottom of the league in turnovers from the secondary last year. Durant went out and had 6. The fit made sense from the moment that signing was announced. Yeah, he's undersized for a traditional boundary corner. That's the one real knock on him. But what he doesn't have in length, he more than makes up for with football IQ, route anticipation, and the kind of competitive instincts that show up when games actually matter. Those playoff interceptions weren't flukes. Durant understands how to put himself in a position to make plays because he sees things before they develop. And at OTAs, he's been exactly what Dallas signed him to be, making plays, competing at a high level. But here's the thing that makes him even more valuable. He's been taking slot reps with both the first and second team units. That versatility is the wrinkle that matters most. If Durant can play both boundary and nickel at a high level, Christian Parker can move pieces around, disguise coverages, and create matchup problems that just don't exist if your corners are all limited to one spot. Durant, as a chess piece, gives this defense options that won't show up on any depth chart. Right now, both Durant and Revel are getting first-team boundary reps with Bland sidelined. This competition is live, and it is real. Okay, now let me talk about the player almost nobody is discussing right now, because Caelen Carson's story this offseason might honestly be the most underrated development in this entire room. The honest assessment of Carson heading into 2026 wasn't pretty. 5th round pick. Only 14 games played over 2 professional seasons, just 211 defensive snaps last year, coverage metrics below average, a string of injuries, knee in training camp, hamstring, shoulder during the season that kept him from ever stringing together enough healthy time to actually show what he could do. He was a legitimate roster bubble candidate and nobody would have argued the point. Then the OTA started. And Carson showed up. He's been making plays right alongside Durant and Revel throughout week 1. Brian Schottenheimer himself was complimentary about what Carson had brought to practice. And in that first open practice, when the Cowboys were rotating corners through first-team reps with Bland limited, Carson was in that rotation, not getting garbage reps on the back end. The first-team looks. He was cited as the biggest surprise of the group. And here's the thing about a player who's been managing a knee, a hamstring, and a shoulder through an entire NFL season. That is not the same player as a fully healthy version with a complete offseason to prepare. Carson's athleticism was never in question. The question was always durability and consistency. He's getting a chance to show both right now, and add in the motivation factor. He knows exactly what's at stake. Dallas added Durant in free agency and added in the draft. The message to Carson was crystal clear. Earn it or lose it. Don't count him out. Not yet. And then there's the rookie who walked in, Devin Moore, 4th-round pick out of Florida. And before you let that 4th-round label define your expectations, let me tell you what the Cowboys actually think they have here. Moore is 6'3", 19.8 pounds with arm length near 32 inches. When you talk about the prototype for an outside corner in today's NFL, the size to match up with big receivers, the length to disrupt at the catch point, the physicality to hold up in press coverage, Moore's physical profile checks every single box. He fell to the 4th round for one reason: injuries. He started just 17 games over 4 seasons at Florida. When you can't stay on the field in college, the draft punishes you regardless of the talent. But here's the number that tells you everything about what Dallas actually thinks of this kid. They gave Moore a 3rd-round grade internally. Their own evaluation, driven by Christian Parker and his defensive staff, had Moore a full round above where he was taken. When you assign a player a grade like that and he's still sitting there when you're on the clock, you don't hesitate. This wasn't a developmental dart throw. This was Dallas landing the player they believe slipped through the cracks. Moore craves contact at the line of scrimmage. He's a legitimate run defender, and his ball tracking and catch point disruption are real. Some analysts are already having the ceiling conversation, talking about whether Moore has the tools to eventually push DaRon Bland for a starting role down the line. That's not today's conversation. But the physical profile and the organizational buy-in say this is a player Dallas genuinely believes in for the long haul. Now, speaking of DaRon Bland, because we can't talk about this corner room without addressing what his return actually means. When Bland is right, he is one of the best corners in football. The 2023 season made that undeniable. 5 pick sixes, an all-pro caliber performance that had people making the case he was the best corner in the entire NFL. Then foot injuries derailed 2024. More foot issues in 2025. 2 consecutive seasons where Bland couldn't stay healthy. And right now, he's actively rehabbing rather than participating in full team sessions. The honest reality here is, we don't know which version of Bland shows up in training camp. 2 straight seasons of foot problems is not a small concern. Speed, lateral quickness, the ability to flip and run, all of it runs through your foundation. Feet don't always come back the same. If Bland is genuinely back, the Cowboys have something special. Bland healthy on one side, a fully recovered Revel on the other. That's a starting pair that changes how every offensive coordinator in the NFC has to approach Dallas on film. If the injuries have taken something from him permanently, then Revel and Durant stop being the depth behind Bland and start being the actual foundation of this secondary. And for the first time in a while, it looks like Dallas is actually prepared for both outcomes. Add in the fact that Dallas locked up their entire 2026 draft class. All 7 picks signed before mandatory camp, including first-round edge rusher Malachi Lawrence, and this defense is being built with real intention.